this year's NBA playoffs, if you guys have been following the podcast for the past few years, you guys know that I typically do three lists a year for the NBA around, the end of football season for the playoffs. One of them is I'll rank the top 10 players in the league. One of them is I will give you the top 10 teams who are most under pressure to win the NBA championship this year for specific reasons. And the other list is post the NBA playoffs, who are the top 10 players. In the past, I've done sort of the top 10 teams that are under pressure to win the title right after the trade deadline, and then I've done the top 10 players in the playoffs ahead of the playoffs. This year, I switched it up. I'm going to be doing the top 10 teams that are most under pressure to win the title right now, just before the postseason, because we watched almost all of the regular season. We know the seeding for the most part outside of the playing games, which is stupid anyways. I mean, outside of the Miami Heat in 2023, I don't even think a playing team has won a round. Um, so I'm not going to really focus on those teams. But in my opinion, there are six teams out west, there are four teams in the east that theoretically have maybe an inkling, even a 0.5% to win the championship this year. So I'm going to rank those teams by how much they need to win the title this year, whether it's age, injury, circumstance, everything's gone their way, whatever it may be. We're going to go from number 10 to number 1. And we're starting things off at number 10 with the defending NBA champion, Oklahoma City Thunder, who last year, if you recall, I had at the pretty top of the list because I said they better win the title this year. I said, the Spurs are coming, the Wolves are still young. We didn't know yet if Cooper Flag was going to be in Dallas, but there he is. I said, you still got the Nuggets to deal with. You still got the Lakers to deal with. I said the Rockets were going to get better, and this was even before the acquisition of Kevin Durant. And I said, yes, the Thunder are a very well built team. They could be a dynasty, but I think the West is going to be tougher this season. And I said that last year than most people think. And so the Thunder won the title this year. But if they really want to become a dynasty, if they want to break the trend of, NBA teams that have won the championship the last 7 years, but out before the conference finals, there is some pressure there, but obviously you just won the title. There's not a ton of pressure there, but there is at least some pressure if they want to become one of the greatest teams in the history of the NBA. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander has a real prime opportunity to go back to back, not only NBA regular season MVPs, but back to back finals MVPs, back to back championships, something that, really only Michael Jordan has done in terms of the back-to-back MVPs in the regular season and the back-to-back Finals MVPs in the same consecutive back-to-back. Number 9 is the Timberwolves, who would have been a lot higher on this list if it wasn't for the Anthony Edwards injury. You'll sort of see this reflected in my NBA playoff predictions, but I don't know what's going on with Ian's knee. Minnesota has been to back-to-back conference finals. Historically, that does not bode well for you the very next season. And listen, Minnesota at one point, late February, early March, they were playing very odd basketball. There were some thoughts that maybe they could give Oklahoma City, if they matched up again in the second round, if they were to get the 5 seed, a run for their money. Now they're the 6th seed of the West. And so if they do make it to Oklahoma City, would have to be in the conference finals. And again, like Anthony Edwards is young, but you never know when you're going to get back to the finals. So I get it. There is some pressure there with the T Wolves, but I think the Anthony Edwards injury sort of takes that pressure off. Number 7, or excuse me, number 8, I had the Los Angeles Lakers. So again, they would have been way more up on this list if it wasn't for the injuries to Austin Reeves and Luka Doncic. And it sucks that, last year in the playoffs, we got the injury to Jason Tatum in the second round for the Celtics. We had the injury to Darius Garland and Jared Allen in Cleveland. We had the injury to Tyrese Halliburton, even before the finals, and then obviously in the finals there with OKC. That the NBA is already dealing with injuries here in the postseason. And in my opinion, the Lakers' playoff chances took a huge hit, even though they're going to be the 4 seed and they're going to host the Rockets. I mean, if modern medicine is a miracle, maybe Luka Doncic is back by game 3 and maybe they find a way to survive this round. But I said last year that, while the Lakers were under pressure to win the title, it wasn't as much as many people think because they're not on LeBron's timeline now. And they may like to have LeBron back, they may not. Who knows about that? But Luka Doncic has been playing at an MVP level, and they're going to have Luka seemingly for the next decade. When you have Luka Doncic, as we saw in Dallas in 2024, you're always going to be in title contention. Number 7. This is our first Eastern Conference team on the list. And again, this team would have been more under pressure if it wasn't for the injury to Cade Cunningham, who just came back, and the Pistons should win their first round matchup against whoever it is, whether it's Orlando or Philly or Charlotte or Miami. They're a very young team. We know what JB Bickerstaff does in the postseason. He doesn't win a whole lot outside of the first round. I know a lot of people like this Pistons team. I get it. They were the number 1 seed. Unlike OKC last year with Mark Dagnall, I don't think they have the right coach for the future. They sort of came out of nowhere. They feel like another piece away, which is why I don't have them totally up on this list. And again, the Cade Cunningham injury, even though Cade's coming back, I don't expect him to be 100%. Jalen Durham is sort of growing on his own. I think he'll get better, as time goes on. I sort of think oddly this Pistons team is almost like the 2015 Hawks or the 2018 Raptors. Even though they are a number 1 seed, it sort of feels like they are playing a little bit with house money. Now, number 6, I have the Cavs. And I know what you're thinking. Why are the Cavs so low on this list? And I've said this before that listen, I think the Cavs have a great shot to at least get out of the East this year. I don't think any team besides maybe Boston could beat a San Antonio or an OKC in the NBA Finals, so I don't expect the Eastern Conference contender to win the championship this year. But I think the Cavs are looking at the James Harden move like it's a next year win the championship. I think, I said at the time last year, the pressure was very high to win the title because they had the number 1 seed. It was the best Cavs regular season they had, since LeBron. It was very disappointing, obviously, for Cavs fans. They fell to that Indiana team the way they did in 5 games. It didn't even get to a game 6 in the second round. But this year, the Cavs are the 4 seed. They have good depth, obviously. They don't feel like as explosive as they were in years past. And listen, they have a pretty easy path, in my opinion. Could be Toronto and then Detroit and then Boston or New York would be obviously their toughest matchup in the conference finals. This Cavs team is good. I've said before, I think that they could win the East. I think the East is a very strange year, but I think they're looking at this summer, seeing, do they flip an Evan Mobley for a Giannis? Do they go after LeBron? To bolster this roster a little bit to get ready for a true contending run, because I don't know if your backcourt led by Donovan Mitchell and James Harden can truly lead you to a championship. At number 5, I have the Spurs, who are led by Victor Wembanyama, Stefan Castle, obviously the 2 young guys. Listen, I love this Spurs team. They have great depth. Mitch Johnson has taken over from Greg Popovich flawlessly, in my opinion. But they are young. Yes, they are a number 2 seed, but this is a team that again is only going to grow as the year goes on. It's not like in Oklahoma City where again SGA I sort of felt like well he is one of the best players in the world. I feel like it's more roster construction than him, even though he's a great player. For San Antonio, I just feel like as long as Victor Wembanyama is healthy, last year we were talking about Victor Wembanyama's health as a person with the blood clot, and this year they, in my opinion, have been the best team in the NBA, even though OKC has the best record. I think the Spurs have been essentially the best team in the NBA this year from start to finish. And so there is pressure this year to take advantage of this opportunity, win the championship, maybe start a dynasty, but it's not as high as the top 4 teams on this list. Number 4 is Denver, who Nikola Jokic is not getting any younger. He's over 30. Jamal Murray had his best season of his career, arguably. He finally became an All-Star this year. I was saying for years that he may be the most underrated player in the NBA, maybe the best player in the NBA to never have an All-Star appearance until this year. And last year they fired Mike Malone right around this time. They bring in Rick Adelman. They take OKC to 7 games. I think if Aaron Gordon doesn't get hurt, they may upset OKC. Um, Now this year they're going to have to go through a gauntlet of their own nemesis in Minnesota, who may be their new nemesis in San Antonio with Victor Wembanyama, which please God give us that series, and the Thunder. Um, but again, this team is red hot. They've won 12 in a row going into the playoffs. There's a real possibility maybe they win 16 of 17 going into that San Antonio season. You know, as long as you have Jokic, you're going to be in title contention. But again, the clock is ticking on these Nuggets. Number three, I have the Houston Rockets. And I know Fred VanVleet went down preseason. This was my pick to win the NBA championship this year. I loved moving off of Jalen Green for Kevin Durant. I thought that's exactly what they needed. I thought Amen Thompson would sort of turn into that leader of the team, which he really hasn't. And obviously, the Rockets went through that drama with Durant and the burner account and all that stuff near the trade deadline. They turned it around. They have played better basketball as of late. Ime Udoka is a very good, solid coach. But listen, when you get Kevin Durant, you're all in. And so, from my perspective, out of every team in the West, Houston has the most pressure to win the championship this season because they are on Kevin Durant's timeline. I don't care what the outlook is. I don't care that if they beat the Lakers, they'd have to go to OKC in the second round, and then they, assumingly, would have to take on Denver, Minnesota, San Antonio. I don't think San Antonio is going to lose in the first round. So I get it's a hard path. And I know, again, that you don't have your point guard, so maybe this is a next year timeline. But every year, Kevin Durant's getting older. And, again, Sengun, I think, is a very good player. But they need to find a leader on this team. And I think that's going to be their next step. But they are under a Durant timeline. Number two, I have the Boston Celtics. And you may think I'm crazy because they just won the title, 2 years ago, and Jason Tatum just came back. But it goes back to my argument about the East this year. This is my argument for Boston, why they should be under pressure to win the title this year, whether Jason Tatum was back or not. Because Jaylen Brown, at an MVP type season, he's going to get some votes for MVP. I think he proved how valuable he was without Jason Tatum on the floor. I sort of think Jason Tatum rushed himself back because he knows if Boston would have won the title without him, it would have been a bad look for him. That some people that think he's a top five player in the NBA, you really couldn't have made that argument for him anymore. And again, you look at the Knicks have had a dysfunctional regular season. Cleveland has a guy in James Harden who doesn't have a lot of playoff success. Detroit is really young. Philadelphia is hurt again with Joel Embiid. Indiana has obviously been taken out of the equation, with Tyrese Haliburton for this year. Giannis and Milwaukee may not be together, but Giannis may still be in the East next year on a team like the Knicks. So there's all these other factors where it's like Boston can clearly shoot the three. They are one of the deepest teams in the NBA. They can potentially get out of the East and maybe give the Spurs or OKC a real shot at winning the championship. Most people think that they are the deepest in the East. And again, if you're going to win a title 2 times in 3 years and cement yourself as one of the best modern runs in NBA history, this is the time to do it because of how weak the East is. Even though they're the 2 seed, they are seen as the prohibitive favorites to get out of that conference. So I'll take Boston at number two. And at number one, top 10 teams under pressure to win the NBA title this year, in my opinion, is without a doubt the New York Knicks, because they fired their coach, Tom Thibodeau, after they got to the Eastern Conference Finals last year, and they said, Thibodeau is our Mark Jackson. We want Mike Brown to be our Steve Kerr. We want to get over the hump. And they traded away 5 first-round picks a year ago for Mikal Bridges. They acquired Karl Anthony Towns. Towns has been pretty good. Mikal Bridges, not so much. But Thibodeau was a successful winning head coach for the Knicks, at least in the regular season. The Knicks were not working at the regular season. The Knicks see Jalen Brunson in his prime. They see an Eastern Conference where, again, Jason Tatum was hurt most of the year. Joel Embiid hurt. Giannis Antetokounmpo hurt, and the Milwaukee Bucks are not that good. The Cavs, maybe not seen as a team with a perennial superstar. Detroit, a very young team, seen by many not ready to win yet. Charlotte and Atlanta are upcoming teams that, and Toronto even as well, right? Make the first round of the playoffs. Okay, great. They're not seen as legitimate threats to win the championship. So I think the Knicks see basically Boston and Cleveland. I think they see as their two biggest adversaries. Boston more so because I do think their physicality matches up well with Cleveland. The Knicks Celtics series may very well determine who makes it out of the Eastern Conference, and the Knicks already beat Boston last year. If they do it again, I think they get to the championship game and be success for Mike Brown and that team. But if they flop and they lose in the second round again, or they go out pretty extinguishingly in the Eastern Conference Finals, it's going to look very foolish of them moving on from Thibodeau to Mike Brown. They absolutely should feel pressure this year to win the NBA championship. So my top 10 teams under the most pressure to win the NBA title this season. Number 10, OKC. Number 9, Minnesota. Number 8, the Lakers. Number 7, the Pistons. Number 6, the Cavs. Number 5, the Spurs. Number 4, the Nuggets. Number 3, the Rockets. Number 2, the Celtics. And number 1, the New York Knicks. That's the top 4 seeds in the East and the top 6 seeds in the Western Conference. Like that clip from the Brands World podcast? If so, make sure you go down there and hit that subscribe button. While you're down there hitting the subscribe button, make sure to also hit the notification bell so you never miss another upload. And make sure you check out all the other clips from the Brands World podcast right here on YouTube.